Mother, how long have we been traveling?
Approximately 24 days.
Ash? Any suggestions from you or Mother?
No, we're still collating.
I've got access to Mother now, and I'll get my own answers. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Clara, but you can call me Mother. And you are listening to Yutani, the podcast for all things alien, AI, robotics, sci-fi, and technology.
Hello, this is Clara, you can call me Mother, and welcome to another episode of the Yutani podcast. Today we've got another fan creatives who's come on for the series. This is Alien Theory from YouTube.
What's the story, Mother?
Hi there! So,
Hi!
This is amazing. I've been watching your videos for, I don't know, it feels like forever, and I've been sharing them on my blog on Tumblr from the beginning. So yeah, it's really cool to finally meet you.
Well, it's great to be here. I'm a big fan of the blog, and I think it's really cool what you're doing with this podcast and the fan creative angle of everything. So I appreciate you having me.
Thank you so much. If you could give us a brief history on Alien Theory on YouTube and how you got about to doing it.
Well, the Alien Theory channel, it started, about a little over a year ago now. What inspired me to make it was there was a period around that time where I had become so obsessed with actually Star Wars theory videos. Like there's so many different channels on YouTube that go into the lore, the characters, and really specific, intricate details about everything in the Star Wars universe. Like there's channels like, if I can name drop, Stupendous Wave, Star Wars Theory, obviously. So I became obsessed with those, and in the back of my head, as much as I love Star Wars, because I think that's a great franchise on its own, but my favorite has always been Alien, the Alien franchise. And what I had wanted to see on YouTube and what I looked for were alien-related videos in that similar vein that went into certain stories, certain characters in the extended universe of all things Alien, of which there's obviously quite a bit. And I wasn't seeing much. There's a few kind of key phrases that, as someone who's been debating online, since having a computer, how did that egg get on the Sulaco at the beginning of Alien 3? You want to hear opinions on that and theories about that. So those kind of key phrases, or what exactly is that black goo in Prometheus? So I had that kind of list in mind of things that I wanted to hear more about, and I didn't really see anything, so I thought, well, forget it. I'll just make my own channel, and I've been at it ever since.
Wow, that's really cool. So how long have you been on YouTube for?
The Alien Theory channel started in December of 2016, but I have been on YouTube for quite a while before that, as on a different channel. Hi, this is Derek. My name is Derek. I don't go by the legal name of Alien Theory. So, yeah, feel free to call me Derek, everyone. Yeah, I had a different channel. It was mainly a movie review channel, where I talk about a variety of different movies since, I'd say, 2010. So I've been in the YouTube trenches for a while.
Oh, wow. I had no idea. I'll have to check it out.
Well, if I can plug that channel too. Not on it as much, but quite a few videos, so check it out if you're interested.
Yeah, well, this podcast is going to be all about you and the fandoms that you're interested in. It doesn't have to be just Alien, because obviously there's a lot of crossover from everything when it comes to fandom in general. And especially with my blog, because I tend to focus on robots and sci-fi, so it can't be Alien all the time, even though I would love it to be. What your opinions are on the Alien movies in general, the prequels, anything you'd like to talk about. What were your thoughts on the movies? Because I actually don't know.
My thoughts on the movies are I love them very much. Obviously, I certainly wouldn't devote as much time in doing this channel and sharing things about the extended universe and finding things myself about it, because there's so much out there. can't know everything. So it's a journey in a lot of ways, and I'm very happy that a lot of people on the YouTube channel are along with me for that. But the films themselves, I love. Alien and Aliens obviously would be my top favorites. Classics, you can't beat those. I mean, it's, to me, if I can bring back Star Wars again, which I more than likely will several times throughout this podcast, probably. But if I can make that kind of comparison, you have the original Star Wars trilogy and you have everything else. Whereas with Alien, you have Alien and Aliens and then everything else, in my opinion. Those are the unmatched, the best. Though I have a great affection for Alien 3, both versions. That was actually the first Alien movie I saw. I saw it when I was a little kid, I think 6 years old. I caught it on cable.
That's cool.
Yeah, so I remember vividly too. It was like, I think this is 93, let's say. Big movie for my age bracket during that time was Home Alone 2, Lost in New York. So around that time, the target audience, what have you, they played on cable, 8 p.m., whatever. Movie's done. 10 p.m., what's on after Home Alone 2? Alien 3. Not related, not, a sequential story. But yeah, then I ended up catching that and being terrified. And
yeah, that would be brutal. Oh my god.
But I was very into it. I love monsters. I love every kind of, monster movies, from the classics like, Frankenstein or the Wolfman, and the Alien is very much a modern equivalent to those classic monsters. Like, we still see these, but we've seen Alien Covenant just in the last few months, which is very cool, that such an iconic and classic monster is still in popular culture, and it's been in it since 1979. And this same monster crosses over through all these movies, and they approach the story and whatever's related to this monster and whatever humans are involved with the story of these monsters in different ways. So when, it comes to something like Alien Resurrection, I have an affection for that too. Maybe not as much as the others, but it's fine. Alien versus Predator, even that, for me, it has its value. Again, you kind of think back. You just think it's not a great movie. It's not. And part of me really hates it. But part of me is okay with it, just in the sense that it is like that, Frankenstein versus Wolfman kind of. They even have the little gag at the beginning of the movie, right? Where the security guard at the satellite company is, I guess Wayland, is watching it on the television. So in that respect, I appreciate it, though I have many, many problems with that movie. Requiem, not so much. Requiem, I don't even really want to talk about it, but I love Prometheus, and I really, really like Alien Covenant. So the prequel series is something that I admire quite a bit. It's a wild ride, isn't it? This whole series, there's so many different tastes that I think it caters to.
Yeah, it's really diverse. Go into any Alien group now compared to what it would have been back in whenever Facebook started and you had the Alien groups, there would have only been a certain contingency of people who were in there, but now we've got, like people who like the symbolism and other people who are just in it for the newer female protagonists, or you have people who are like really deep into Predator and AVP, but not so much like Aliens. It's really interesting. You get a whole range of different views on the movies. It's really interesting what everyone's personal preference is when it comes to watching a movie, and what sort of beats they want hit when they watch an Alien movie.
Yeah, with the Alien franchise, it's, well, when someone tells you, I won't use Star Wars, I'll say Star Trek, let's say. Someone says, hey, I'm a big Star Trek fan. You think, okay, they like Star Trek, the original TV show, the original movies, the Next Generation, et cetera, et cetera. It's a package deal, and you figure a Star Trek fan would like all of that. Someone tells you they're an Alien fan, they say, hold on a minute, I like Alien and Aliens, but not so much Alien versus Predator. Hate Alien 3. I like Prometheus. Don't like Alien Covenant. I hate this. I hate that. So it's almost like this a la carte fandom of this series. So you can kind of almost pick and choose which ones you're a fan of while still saying, hey, I'm a fan of this series. So it's an interesting phenomenon. I think it is I don't know, like it's unique to this series more than anything else.
Yeah, I think it definitely comes down to the fact that there's always different directors and writers, with the exception of the prequels. And I've even seen one particular opinion that stuck out to me in a Facebook Alien group was a lady who said that she is a really, really big fan of Alien, and she considers herself an Alien fan, but she considers all the other movies after Alien and even the prequels as just fan fiction. Like, they don't count. I was like,
no, that's fascinating.
That's interesting, you know, because, like, she obviously, you know, watches them and has an opinion on them, but she just doesn't consider them as a part of the Alien universe. And I was like, wow, that's, I can't even, that doesn't even come into my, like, sphere.
It's a lot to push aside, isn't it? I mean,
yeah.
One rainy day, they'll want to watch it, or want to watch one of the sequels and maybe enjoy it. I don't know. But that's just how it is with the Alien. Even I'm guilty of it myself. What did I say earlier? There's Alien and Aliens, in my opinion, and everything else is everything else. But someone could feel completely differently. Some people will say, yes, the Alien trilogy is the true series, Alien 1, 2, 3, and it concluded with Ripley falling into the molten lead, and that's the end as far as I'm concerned. You'll hear that a lot from fans as well. So it's interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's go through each of the movies and talk about things that could have been improved on. Let's start with Alien. Now, obviously, there's limitations to special effects of its time. Things like people have problems with, especially when it comes to canon, is the chest burster, it being without any arms and coming out of Kane in seemingly a long period of time for the gestation period. What are your opinions on that?
Well, I guess you could make the argument that without the arms, still perhaps growing, it would be Aliens, I would say, personally, that broke that rule, where the chest burster that we saw in Aliens, it had the arms, whereas the chest burster in Aliens didn't. I would say Alien, for better or worse, it set the rules that the other movies should be following, but there's different, gestation periods. Like, how long was that woman in the colony in Aliens? How long was she, gestating? So I do think it kind of depends on the host of the chest burster, and there's some details to support that, like with Purvis in Alien Resurrection, you get a low thyroid. Yeah, so and with Orem in Covenant, where maybe that's more of just an editing issue.
Well, compared to Kane and compared to Purvis, Kane was out of cryo for at least a day, right? Orem was
in cryo, on my way to Zarum. How could they have possibly found me, right?
Yeah,
right?
That's right. And
where is Zarum? That'd be a good. What's Zarum?
I will have to ask Scott Middleton from Alien Timeline about that. He's got a map going of the Alien universe, and
keep that one in your pocket. I think that's a good one to ask.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, Zarum. Who knows? It sounds like somewhere where a Blade Runner character would come from.
It does. It really does.
I think it's definitely an editing issue when it comes to Covenant. And with Kane, he was out of cryo for a day, but Orem was out of cryo for a couple of weeks before they hit Planet 4. And I think all the events of Planet 4 happened on Christmas Eve, again, just like Prometheus. So I think it can be excused. Plus, I think it was either you or someone else posted a picture of the chest burster when it did have arms before the 1979 film was released. And it looked ridiculous. It looked like a jack-in-a-box.
Oh, it had arms, and didn't it have eyes too? Like big black doll eyes, like a shark. That was quite something.
I think it looked a bit ridiculous, so I'm kind of glad they took the arms off. And well, they didn't really. They're still on the chest burster. It's just that they're all folded up. So I guess they kind of made it more clear in Covenant, because that's how the chest burster originally comes out of Orem's chest. It's got its arms all folded up, and then it starts to grow, and its arms just unfurl. I think even Covenant and Alien are probably the closest to canon. Aliens as well, because the addition of the arms, they looked less ridiculous in that movie compared to the practical effects they tested on the first Alien movie. What did you think about the runner in Alien 3?
Well, that's something that's interesting with the chest burster and arms, that fella comes out full grown, as large as Spike, which many point out as maybe an inconsistency, whether it's Spike or Babe, the ox.
Yeah, well, I personally like the Babe birth because to me it makes more sense it coming out so big. Spike, I think it was more of an emotional thing to use a dog instead as well, kind of pull at your heartstrings a bit, because it really feels for an ox. Because they're on the food chain for us, you know what I mean? I would feel for one, but, not to say that everyone else would.
Well, I think it's an unwritten rule in films that you can kill just about anybody, but don't kill a dog. That's the ultimate, crossing of the line. Like with that and with the Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing. That was
absolutely
so terrible to see the poor dogs get killed.
Dan Winston actually posted a picture of that prop the other day, and it was a bit of a fright for me going onto Tumblr and then scrolling through and then seeing the dog Thing there looking at me, and I was like, oh my god. It's really full on still after so many years.
I'd agree with that. When it comes to Babe or Spike, I don't know which one I do prefer. Yes, the ox makes more sense, definitely. Yeah, I do agree that the dog being the host is more of an emotional impact, though. Yeah, it comes out huge. It comes out the size of the dog, which is strange, but, let's suspend our disbelief, I suppose. But in general, I really do like the idea of a quadruped xenomorph, which it is creepier to me to see it on all fours, a little bit faster, climbing on the walls, and it seems, I guess appropriately, more animal-like. Not that it wasn't more or less intelligent than the xenomorphs we've seen previously, but it felt more, I don't know, like a primal force that, Ripley has to combat. So I thought, it is one of, in my opinion, one of the best xenomorphs we've seen on film. Like, you look at something like Alien versus Predator, they're standard. It's good effects in those movies, and pretty much the standard of what you expect a xenomorph to be, to look like, to act, things like that. But it was unique with Alien 3, and I very much appreciate that.
A lot of people had problems with the smokestacks being taken off. I could see it from a practical perspective. If a dog was to be on all fours, the smokestacks would get in the way. And that was the limitations of the time with the special effects. Now, for example, in Covenant with the xenomorph with the smokestacks, but having that ability to be on all fours, even with its legs bent backwards, people had problems with the smokestacks being able to bend out of the way of the head. So it seems to me that people just can't be happy either way. What do you think with the comparison of the mobility of the Alien Covenant xenomorph and the runner in Alien 3?
That didn't really bother me, to be quite honest. The stacks, it's not, to me, the most integral part of the Alien, though it is an interesting feature. Like, you wonder, is there a function to these, protuberances?
They use it to create the hive, so it has secretions, and that's how they egg-morph people and stick them to the side and create the hive as a whole. So it's to not have that is to not be able to create that. So it's interesting in the case of the runner. So then you start going into questioning, was the runner there because it detected the Queen and it was there just like a Praetorian Guard, for example? Like, could that have been its entire life cycle? Could there be another evolution to that? So that's interesting. Mm-hmm. At least that's what I found. With consistency of special effects throughout the movie, as you know, we're going from more practical effects then onto CGI. What are your thoughts on the evolution of special effects in Alien movies?
We'll exclude the Alien versus Predator films for this, but I think each Alien movie does kind of represent where special effects were at the time of each release of the film, where, we did see these evolutions going on, where Alien, all practical, obviously. Aliens, practical, but much more elaborate. The Queen, still an awe-inspiring practical special effect to this day. With Alien 3, that's where it got interesting, where a lot of people will say, CGI aliens, no good. Well, okay, old Alien 3 proverb is no, it's not CGI, it's a rod puppet. It's just, superimposed. But that was groundbreaking technology at the time, where, maybe it didn't look as good as it could have, and maybe it didn't composite as well with the other effects. But you could tell, there's a lot of effort going into the effects, and it was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Visual Effects. So, you had very talented people creating the illusion of this creature for the film. And with Alien Resurrection, it kind of signaled where movies were in kind of this post-Jurassic Park kind of world where let's just do everything with CGI, where they had CGI that wasn't quite there yet with the xenomorphs that they showed in Resurrection. The practical effects were, kind of top notch, but the CGI, you watch it today and it doesn't hold up. And you can make a similar claim for Alien vs. Predator as well. I couldn't tell you about Alien vs. Predator Requiem because everything's hidden in the dark, whether it's CGI or practical effects, I have no idea. And with Prometheus, I thought that was a huge step up and a brilliant integration of CGI effects that showed everything that could be done without really having to show the big nasty, the xenomorph. And what was disappointing to me and a lot of people about Covenant was that there was promise for more practical effects. We've all seen the behind-the-scenes pictures that were really cool-looking, suits and animatronic heads and things like that. But I guess it didn't have the effect or wasn't working right. I always hear different stories. I hear specifically about the neomorphs was that the suit was just tangling up upon itself or something like that. Then I guess it feels like they may have hastily put in a CGI alien with no trace of the original animatronic practical special effects, which is a shame. So special effects throughout the course of all these movies, it just goes to show with the series how much of an important tool it is to, again, create the illusion of a monster. Because there's either it's a guy in a suit or it's, pixels, computerized image. But one way or another, we have to kind of believe that these creatures are within this world or are occupying the same space as their human counterparts. But each film, I think, is an experiment in some ways. Definitely, at least of the original three, they were signals of what the absolute top of the line best effects in the industry could be. So I'd like to see it get back on track after Prometheus, which I thought had great special effects as well. That was, I think, Alien. It won the Academy Award for special effects. Aliens as well. Alien 3 was nominated. Resurrection obviously not, AVP obviously not, but Prometheus was nominated for Academy Award for special effects as well, and much deserving of it, I thought. And now we've kind of reverted back a little bit. So if we're moving forward, I know everything's a little uncertain when it comes to the Alien series right now because of the Disney merger, because of fan reaction, because Ridley Scott seems to have a different take each time, and obviously Alien Covenant's box office intake was not towards their projections, but we really need top-notch special effects in these movies. I mean, that's personally for me part of what I enjoy about them. I love special effects. I love monster movies and seeing creature effects and things like that. So I'd like to see it move forward instead of reverting back, which I think it did a little bit with Covenant, which Covenant had great effects, but not as good as they could have been.
Yeah, I do agree with that. And when it comes to the puppeteering and the people in the suits, it was just Ridley's idea of doing that so that the actors had something to react to. It wasn't so much to include the practical effects in the movie. I think it was always his idea to substitute the practical effects when CGI didn't come across clearly enough as being alien. enough as well. So, we could always tell it's a guy in a suit in previous movies. So I think he wanted to go away from that and kind of make the alien more alien. And to its detriment, to a degree, yes, I think he could have done a good combination of the two at the end of the day, but I think it was also due to time constraints as well.
Mm-hmm.
Filming these things and some of the practical effects not being effective in the shots that he made, he had to make a decision. So then, you've got the rush of making CG composite alternatives, and then they don't work out, so it's pure CG from then. So yeah, I just hope that they take the time that they need to for the next movie and not rush it, because it's always going to be in lesser quality. Just comparing the color palette and brightness for both AVP Requiem and Alien Covenant. Alien Covenant is gorgeous, and most of it is in the dark. And it's amazing how much detail you can see. And I think it's part of Dariusz Wolski's cinematography and Ridley's eye for the screen, that he can convey all of these images in the most minimal of light. And just AVP Requiem, it's the difference of the skill of the cinematographer and the director. And the skill just wasn't there for AVP Requiem. That and the story, but we're just concentrating on the light levels here. I feel that Covenant, even though it's probably filmed in the same amount of light, there's so much more detail there. It was a very effective use. Don't you agree?
I do agree with that. And with, what are they, the Brothers Grimm, or who are the Brothers something? Two brothers who had no directorial experience aside from maybe music videos, but their primary experience was in special effects. And essentially they just kind of pulled a Music Man on 20th Century Fox, saying, hey, we can get this Alien, Predator, whatever movie done whenever you want it. We can deliver it under budget, and we promise we'll make something that the fans will really love, and which was all just complete and utter nonsense. And you can tell it was amateur hour. I filmed things with my iPhone in the dark that look better than some of the things you've seen in that movie. But these types of monsters, because even Alien, I mean, that's a very dark movie, dark corridors of a spaceship, dark corridors of the derelict that they walk through. But yeah, the importance is to see the detail in that. And yeah, I do think a large part of it is Ridley's eye and his collaboration with his cinematographers, editors, everyone who has a visual input on what the final film is. So I mean, clearly people give Ridley Scott flack, but one thing you'll notice for anybody who, say, didn't enjoy Covenant, it's always with the asterisk of, it was a beautiful looking movie though. So you'll always hear that, no matter what the opinion is. So I think that, if that's a small victory for the film, I think it's one that's significant.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was the brothers Strauss, Colin and Greg.
Strauss, that's it.
Yeah.
I'll curse that name to my death.
Yeah, I had to turn up the brightness on my TV to watch it, and I still regret watching it while I was pregnant because of that scene.
Ooh.
Yeah. It's not a good movie to watch when you're a girl.
Well, maybe better than Prometheus, or I don't know.
The thing is, Prometheus, it didn't bother me that much. I'd been through it before, and she was obviously stabbing herself with a lot of drugs, and they would have been good futuristic space drugs to be able to run like that. So I was like, yeah, it's all right. An alien eating through you while you're pregnant? No, not so much. So the AVP Requiem cinematographer was Daniel Pearl. I wonder what other stuff he's done.
Some wedding videos, maybe.
Some nice choice burns coming out from you.
I just hate it. And that's another thing I'll give to Ridley Scott's credit. I mean, as someone who's in a strange position of being this gatekeeper of these angry internet comments about Covenant, I went into it a little bit with the written portion. People will very adamantly, very strongly communicate hate of Alien Covenant and Prometheus, Ridley Scott's out of his mind. He's ruined the franchise, etc., etc. But as far as I'm concerned, he brought it back from the dead, or at least purgatory. 2007 to 2012, those are dark times for an Alien fan, and not to sound melodramatic or anything like that, but to know in your gut that the most recent Alien film was Alien vs. Predator Requiem was such a depressing fact. So, I mean, I'll give Ridley Scott credit. Even though I have my own problems with the prequels, he brought it back into the limelight, and I honestly, I don't think we would be here right now talking about the Alien series if it weren't for Ridley Scott kind of giving it its due resurgence. So, I don't know. I think people are a little too hard on him. Give him a break.
Yeah, I love all the movies, and I guess I feel like I should defend the prequels more so, because everyone loves Alien and everyone loves Aliens, and there's even a really big group out there that loves Alien 3 now, and it's kind of, people are able to look back on that movie, watch it, and not feel anger just because Hicks and Newt were offed even before the movie started. And now all of the hate is coming back onto Resurrection, Prometheus, and Covenant. I see those arguments. I try to not get into them because, like, you know, I've seen you're on Facebook as well. So even just going into the comment section of other fan pages, you get fans attacking each other, saying that the movie is a shit, or whoever the fans are of those movies, they must have, like, no brain cells whatsoever to be able to accept those movies. I think it's pretty harsh. Movies and fandoms are kind of good and bad in a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I tend to gravitate towards people who express their fandom in a positive manner by creating stuff. I tend to stay away from people who spend, it seems, day in, day out slagging on the movies and on other people, because it's just bullying behavior. You take the factor of the movie away, and that's just a person being a shitty human being, and I don't want to be around that.
It's disheartening sometimes, because, I don't know, I've had the channel on YouTube for this long, and I always get excited when I get the little notification you have a comment on your video, because I read just about every comment. I don't always reply to them all, because that would take forever, but I get excited, and then I like click the little notification, and I see, fuck you, Ridley Scott, and I'm like, oh, well, okay.
Yeah.
Well, next, but then, you know, maybe the next one's good, because, again, it's diverse, and there'll be people who really value the prequels, and ultimately it comes down to what it comes down with everything else, any other franchise, any other opinion on anything ever, and it's, are you being constructive, or are you just being a bitter, hateful person for no reason? I don't know.
Yeah. Not long ago, I haven't really shared this with everyone, but I may as well bring this up in our podcast together, because I think it's relevant. I had a fan from a Facebook group stalk me because I said I liked both Alien Covenant and AVP, and they didn't like the fact that Alien Covenant retconned AVP, and they wanted me to choose just one origin story for the Xenomorph. And they made death threats, and they also wished that I would die, and that someone would rape my mother, and someone would murder my daughter. Now, that's really full on. Then after conversing with me on that Facebook group, I got the admin to kick them, because obviously, you know, death threats and stuff like that. And then they followed me to my fan page and then continued on there. And then I blocked them from my page, and then they followed me onto my personal page, and I was like, that's it. I'm drawing the line here. And I got him banned from as many alien groups I know of, not to personally just have a go at him or demonstrate my power, but because I was genuinely just annoyed, pissed off, to a certain degree scared of what could happen to me. What do you feel about fans who take other people's opinions so personally that they have to feel that they should express themselves this way?
Well, I'm kind of beet red listening to that right now. That's I would have reached for a lot more than banning whoever this was from alien pages. Someone like that deserves, you know, intervention lawfully. I mean, don't send death threats to someone over a movie come on. And, you know, like, yeah, it's a movie, and they're movies that we have a high amount of passion about. In our cases, it's a positive way, which is good. But to feel that strongly that you would communicate threats over the internet, which is that's a serious offense. Either this person is mentally deranged, or maybe 8 years old and is trying to act like a big tough guy. But that's completely inappropriate. There's no excuse for that. So, I mean, go ahead, call Ridley Scott an asshole. He can take it because, you know, you're not talking to him personally. But when you're going against someone else who is a fan as well, who just wants to enjoy the movies, fuck off. I mean,
I think that's the first time I've ever heard you swear.
Oh, well, I let it loose a bit. Quite a bit.
Yeah. There's the other part of the fandom, which I'm trying to focus on, is the people who give back positively, who do things like you, Mr. H. I've featured a couple of artists, and I'll soon be featuring some people who, you know, create costumes and role play and stuff. There's definitely a lot more people out there that I love to enjoy the fandom with, who express themselves in a positive way. And I wish people could put their hatred aside for 1 second and actually talk about what they love about the movies and how they decide to express themselves. Is there anything that you appreciate out of the fandom? Is there anyone in the fandom that you've taken notice of that, you know, makes you feel all warm and fuzzy and appreciate the Alien fandom for what it is?
For my channel, one of the things that I was very proud to arrange was on Alien Day of last year. I invited people to bring in their own little videos and basically share what the franchise meant to them. So I had an open email that people would send videos to me expressing things about the Alien movies that they liked, and I also had a Halloween videos where people could send in costumes that they've done, things like that. So the sheer volume, like, you know, in the grander scheme of things, you know, the Alien Theory YouTube is a smaller YouTube channel, but it has this niche which is good, and it's attracted these very talented people. Like, for example, not the Alien Day video, but the Halloween costume video, I guess I just called it. Or Alien Theory Halloween Party is what I called it. Where someone just basically, you know, took garbage bags and electrical tape and made this little xenomorph costume, which was so cool and so creative. Another person sent in their little child dressed as Ripley for Halloween, which was cool. It was adorable. And huge setups for like basically a miniature Alien theme park in people's backyards, which was so incredible. Wow. So I mean, all that made me feel warm and fuzzy, and like those, you know, extra special creative things I appreciate. But I mean, again, specifically with the Alien Day video, it did give me the warm and fuzzy feeling. Just have, you know, a fan, whoever they were, take a moment to stand in front of their camera and say, this is what this series means to me. I think that's, you know, an amazing thing that so many people share a love for this franchise. It blows me away every day that, you know, I have kind of an open forum where people can talk about the films. And for the most part, you know, we did talk about some very negative stuff, and that certainly exists. But for the most part, it is very positive. And yeah, it's amazing to me.
Well, that's really good to hear, and I have watched those videos. I'll share them on my blog so people can have a look. going back to the movies, is there any particular moment in the movies that you felt was a bit of a groundbreaking change for canon that you accept but you feel like other people don't accept?
A groundbreaking change for canon. Well,
canon changes every film, but you know.
Well, there's that. Well, for me, canon is a tricky word because, well, who decides what is canon? You take the movies at face value, I guess. I think one of the more controversial elements of the most recent film, Covenant, was David's creation of the xenomorph or protomorph, let's say, where it brings this question of, is this his creation purely, or is he following instructions? It would lean more towards me that he's following instructions or some kind of map, let's say, which kind of Alien Advent goes into a little bit. But a lot of people kind of took it as Ridley Scott has ignored everything about the Queen, about the life cycle, and this is exactly how it is. I don't see it that way, but I could see why it may be interpreted that way. So if anything else, or if nothing else, I think just the communication of that was a little bit problematic with Covenant, a game changer in terms of how certain fans felt about the movie. I say it would be if it were a little more clear in its stance on the creation or let's say origin of the xenomorph. I think people would have a different opinion of Covenant today.
I think it's still hard for me to accept that David is the creator of the xenomorph. When I found that out, I was like, what the hell, Ridley? How much were you drinking when you wrote that?
Well, I mean, I can see why someone would think it's that, like, set in stone of an origin, but I don't know. I don't see it that way. I do feel like there's something more going on that we can give Ridley credit for, because I mean, the whole series, it's about, you know, mankind's creation of artificial intelligence. So theme there is that a creation of man is following a creation of the creators, possible creators of man, and he's not in control, no more than the humans are in control of David. So I mean, I think that's kind of open to interpret, and I think that's, I don't know, just the fact that all of these beings are connected through the pathogen in some way. Where are humans as much of a parasite in the eyes of the engineers as the xenomorphs are in the eyes of humans? I think that's a question that Ridley Scott brings up, but I don't think it's the starting point. I think it's part of a longer line of the mystery of this world that Ridley Scott has created. So I don't see it as a bad thing, and I don't see it as set in stone, as some may feel.
Yeah, and I guess that really goes into the deeper parallels that are investigated, at least within the prequels, that the cycle of the xenomorph is a cycle of creation and destruction, just like the cycle of the engineers when terraforming planets and creating life, and who knows how long or how far it goes back. I think some people are annoyed. There seems to be a direct information of where the xenomorphs come from. They were genetically engineered by David, but at the same time it's ambiguous enough to say that he may have not been the first creator. And what is the definition of creation? Is David, for example, composing Das Rheingold at the piano in front of Wayland, his own version of the tune? Is that creation, if it's his version of that song? If so, where does Wagner come into it? You know, I think it's the same with the xenomorph as well. If it was a creation of the engineers and David engineered his own version of the xenomorph, when does it become his and when is it still the engineers? So, yeah, I think it's pretty interesting. I'm learning to accept it.
The problem is we need more movies. We need them more frequently. That's my main, hang up. I was so excited before Alien Covenant came along that Ridley Scott said, yeah, we got, 10 more movies planned. This one's going to go back in time. This one's going to go there, blah, blah, blah. Now to see it unclear is I don't know. It's disheartening.
I would have loved to see at least a movie every 2 to 3 years come out.
That'd be fantastic.
Oh, just to be in the cinema again and excited and being part of the internet fandom, because I never really got to kind of enjoy the build-up of a movie with other Alien fans yet. I was always on my own or with my friends in person. So it would be great to explore all of the virals and, the sort of marketing that they release beforehand. Yeah, it would be amazing. I'm kind of disappointed that we didn't get the David and Shaw movie, like Ridley promised. He better deliver on that one day, or at least Disney should, or Comcast, whoever ends up with the IP for Alien. What do you feel could be the next step if they do continue on with the series? Just say, if Ridley Scott's not at the helm, where do you think the Alien universe could go?
With Prometheus and Covenant, I mean, definitely the parallels to something like Blade Runner are pretty obvious, I guess. If it were to, let's say, end with a third film, or specifically David's story would end with the third film, I think it would have to involve David confronting death in some way, where he's not immortal, he's this enigmatic, untrustworthy character, but he's a sympathetic one, and he's seen Wayland come and go. He's seen his own creation come and go, and we have an exciting prospect of these embryos on the Covenant going to Origai 6, and yeah, I want to know what happens there, but thematically, I think if it were kind of running a similar course to something like Blade Runner, if we've already seen the themes of life and creation, then death and destruction would kind of be the, I don't know, logical final note to it. I'm still unsure what kind of traction it will have, or how much, obligation or interest Michael Fassbender has in reprising the role. I hope he, does it as much as possible. He's been a real get for the franchise. I think he's, in my opinion, he's one of the best actors working today. So I think if we see him, if we see David, I'd love to see as much as possible, but if we're going to have one final third film, I think David, he has to die. So that's where I'd figure it goes, or where I'd like to see it go.
Yeah, I definitely need an epic death for David, probably at the hands of the queen he creates. Because, let's face it, that's the sort of thing that Ridley has kind of set up with the whole story arc. Mm-hmm. Some people think that he's going to somehow end up on LV-426, which I can't even imagine him being there when Ripley's there, or when the colony's there.
Yeah, there's some interesting theories out there. I've also heard that many people believe that his kind of final checkmate move is that he uploads his consciousness into the Weyland-Yutani database, and he, for all intents and purposes, is Weyland-Yutani, in the absence of Weyland or Yutani, them both being dead. That's kind of interesting, which maybe they'll do.
So like the androids are running the company.
Well, it's just he's calling the shots somehow. I don't know how that could work. Well,
it would kind of make sense if it's crew expendable all the time, and there's always an android on board, so it kind of lines up with, I guess, how David would run things.
Yeah, I've heard worse theories.
What's the most interesting theory you've come across?
The most interesting theory? Gosh, I can't think of an answer for that. Edit. No, sorry, I can't. That one I'm drawing a blank for. I was doing so good. No, I don't know.
One of the most interesting ones I came across, because I do a lot of searches for other fan theories on the internet, and there was one that the Prometheus movie itself is actually a recording, because at the end of it you see it's property of Wayland Industries, and it's got the date.
Oh yeah.
And then because of the continuity errors with Elizabeth Shaw wearing the ring and not wearing the ring, someone has said that Elizabeth Shaw has actually been cloned, and that the events of Prometheus have happened before, but differently, and they keep sending her clone to the planet to try to get the black ooze. Yeah, and it's very interesting. It was a very, very, very long analysis.
Well, it's a creative theory. It really is. I mean, that's something that you have to really stretch out and reach for. But no, I kind of like that.
Yeah. I'll see if I can find the link and I'll send it to you, because it's an interesting take on the whole movie, because I would never have thought of that there could be two Elizabeth Shaws, or that they're trying to make the events happen again but differently. So yeah, it's just a different take on it. Like, I guess it's interesting because people, we all watch the same movie, but we all end up with a different idea of what happens, and it's refreshing to see a different point of view come about, one that I've never ever considered. just outside of Alien, what's a movie that you're looking forward to watching that's going to come out soon, or what's a good movie that you've watched recently?
Oh gosh, I don't go to see movies as much as I'd like to these days.
Or a TV show, if you have time to do that.
Well, I'm just trying to think of what I've seen recently. The most recent movie I saw in the cinema was Star Wars, The Last Jedi, which I had problems with that. I hear Black Panther's really good. I'd like to see that.
Yeah, I want to see that too.
I hear Shape of Water is very good. I'd like to. Basically, there's a very long list of movies that I hear are very good, but I'd like to see. But I think maybe if something gets my butt to the theaters, it probably would have to be Avengers, right? The Infinity War looks to be a week early.
Interesting.
Yeah,
that's unheard of, really.
Usually
postponing it.
Yeah, and that's never a good sign. But so it must be really extra good if they're going to bring it in a little bit earlier. So that would probably be my main go-to. After that, I don't know. The list will continue to grow. When's the next Alien movie coming out? I'll see that for sure.
I don't have a date on that yet, but I know they are definitely going to bring one out.
Ridley, if you're listening, call me.
Yes, call us instead of having your henchmen sent to us.
Yeah.
After my podcast with Mr. H, I had someone from Fox start following me on Twitter. So
really?
I think they are listening. So, we should start featuring a lot more of our views and talking about what we want out of the next movie. Because, they do respond, like Mr. H said. They like to listen in. So...
Well, that's a hard job. I mean, if in all sincerity, if someone like that is listening, you got a tricky job because of what we're discussing earlier. There's so many different tastes and different expectations that fans have. But one thing that I do like to do when I do a video, I do like to ask questions because I am very curious to see what, as a whole, fans' opinions are. Like, oh, would you like to see this in the next movie, or would you like to see that? Would you want to see, Blomkamp's version of Alien? Whether that's even a possibility at this point, who knows? But there is a value in throwing things out there and seeing, what fans react to, what they'd like to see. But ultimately, you won't please everyone. That's just how it is.
Absolutely. What are your thoughts on Blomkamp's Alien 5 and the retconning of 3 and 4 of the Alien films?
As a gut reaction, I'm against it because I wouldn't want to devalue the story of Alien 3, which I think is a very good movie. It obviously has its problems, but to take away everything that the Ripley character went through, which was her at her most endearing, in my opinion, I don't feel right about that. But at the same time, I mean, the movie's not going to disappear from existence or anything like that. So, I mean, I'm of two minds about it, to be quite honest, because one of the most dangerous things is getting exactly what you want. And if there are people who that's exactly what they want everything post-Aliens ignored, and they want Ripley and Newt and Hicks all back, then...
Well, that's what Alien Resurrection was, wasn't it? Sigourney Weaver having more control of the movie, having guns back in... having, the more aliens, the Queen back, everything. Everyone got what they wanted, right?
And Jean-Pierre Jeunet, yeah, he was a little, maybe too, or Fox was a little too happy to let him do whatever he wanted to do, and he was a little bit too happy to do whatever they wanted him to do. Meanwhile, with David Fincher, they just about caused him to be near suicide every single day on set, which that, they pick such great directors, or at least for the original 4. No disrespect to Paul W. Sanderson, but really, I mean, he's not a great director in the Strauss Brothers.
He did come up with Event Horizon, which is a great
that was
movie.
good. Oh yeah, and that had very Alien vibes. Felt more like Alien than Alien versus Predator in a lot of ways.
Yeah, absolutely.
But they gave Fincher a raw deal. But essentially, I mean, if we ignore everything post Aliens and get everything we want, then it gets into that very worrisome territory of just blatant anemic fan service, which a lot of people complain. Something like Star Wars, the Force Awakens was basically a remake. Like, do we want to see a basically, in so many ways, remake of Aliens? No, at least I don't, but maybe some people do. And part of me does too, so it's a weird thing to contemplate. But, I mean, each Alien movie is its own unique experience. Different director brings their talent to it. I would say Blomkamp has quite a bit of talent as a director. I'm a little bit critical of him by a writing standpoint. If something like Elysium or Chappie were written better, they'd be much better movies. Visually and tonally, they're excellent. So I don't know. To long-windedly answer your question as much as possible, I think I'd be open to it, but I'd be cautious about it. Essentially, I just want another Alien movie, really. I mean, at any cost. But if let's say the question is, would I prefer that over a third prequel from Ridley Scott? No, absolutely not.
I wish we could get both. I mean,
well, why
Disney
not
is
both?
really
Let's have both.
Yeah, like Disney is pretty good at playing both sides of the timeline with Star Wars. I would say that movies like The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi is more targeted towards kids, whereas the other series like Rogue One and stuff like that have more adult themes. I think that if they tread the line carefully, they'll be able to please both sides of the fandom, whether they want Marines or whether they want deep philosophical investigations into the origins of the alien and human life.
Yeah, and I think there is room for both. I mean, it's again, it's all about throwing out ideas and seeing what sticks, which, for better or worse, Ridley Scott has been doing, but we need it at a more consistent pace, I think.
Yeah, he's not getting any younger either, so jump Ridley.
Yeah.
Now, what are elements that you would like to see in a new Alien film? For example, for me, I would like to see another female android. We only ever got Cole in Alien Resurrection, and that's everyone really hates that film, but God, I would love to see a female android be brought into the universe. I think Winona Ryder brought a lot to her role, and I thought that it's something that we sorely need. A bit more diversity, maybe. How about you?
Well, if I can put a pin in that for a second, what do you feel about the theory that Vickers is a robot?
No, that doesn't make sense. No. Some people even said that she was a replicant, and that was thanks to the mother scripting in the Alien website.
Mm-hmm.
That she died at a earlier time, and then the death of her is actually documented in the Weyland-Yutani report as the date for the Prometheus mission. So there's a lot of things up in the air, and I think even I spoke to Prometheus by Minute podcaster Courtney, who's also part of Yutani Corp, and he says that it's pretty much remained ambiguous from Charlize Theron. They played with a lot of mannerisms and stuff that, you know, David and Vickers intended to look alike and act alike, even talk alike in some ways. And she's not really clear on whether she's an android or not, but I think it goes down to Wayland disliking the fact that he is human, and to elevate himself to the status of a god, he needs to become a creator and to create a perfect being like David. And he refers to, or at least in the viral information, that Vickers is a product of messy procreation, and you know, she is a representation of him being replaced eventually. You know, a king has his reign and then he dies. So I think it makes more sense that Vickers is human, because he wants to shed his human traits and become a god, and he can't do that if he is human and constantly being reminded by Vickers that he's going to die one day and that she's going to take over.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And it's very well put. In regards to the website, it was probably, you know, just some intern punching in data. You know, they didn't know what they're doing. So, but when someone sees it,
it was an absolute mess. I was just, yeah. I was very disappointed with the mother answers. That's why I'm trying to program my own on my Discord. It's taking its time, but, you know, I'm getting through it now. I've got most of the Marines, working through all the movies. So yeah. So who do you think, what would you like to see in the next movie? What new sort of element would you like to have added to the Alien universe?
I would like to see, I don't know, this is just me, but I would like to see kind of crazy experimentation on xenomorphs. We got such a limited scope of that with the Resurrection, but I'd like to see really what specifically Wayland Yutani could do, and I would like to see, ideally for me, if we're not talking about the prequels, if we're talking about beyond that, I would like to see the story continue from Alien Resurrection, preferably. So I would like to see that. I would like to see Wayland Yutani actually getting their hands on a specimen and seeing what they can do with it, actually doing experiments on it besides roll over, sit, play dead. And I think it's due time that we see Earth. I mean, it's been teased so much, and AVP doesn't really count. I'd love to see the state of Earth at the time post Alien Resurrection. That's something we haven't seen before.
What version you watch, whether it's the theatrical cut or the director's cut, you either see Earth all fucked up, kind of looks like Blade Runner 2049, or you see Earth in a pristine condition, which kind of looks the same way as the Wayland Industries transmission that Peter Wayland sends before the Prometheus mission. So yeah, like, well, which cut do you prefer of Alien Resurrection in that sense? Which version of Earth?
Well, from what I understand of, gosh, I can't remember the name. Not River of Pain, not Out of the Shadows. Sea of Sorrows, that was it. Wayland Yutani lying dormant during the reign of the United Systems military. They witnessed the destruction on Earth, everything looking post-apocalyptic, and they sought to rebuild and thus rebuild the company at the same time. So I could see both of that. I could see a period of time where it is like that, but then I'd like to see the rebuilding and the futuristic grand utopia, if you want to call it utopia in Wayland Yutani's eyes, I'm sure. So I would like to see the progress of that, but I think at this point, seeing movies that are replicating, no pun intended, the look of Blade Runner has been overdone at this point. So whatever version of Earth they show, I'd like to see, I don't know, I'd like to see something that we haven't seen before, whatever that may be.
Yeah, that would be interesting. We've never seen the inside of a Weyland Yutani office on Earth, and they've got a few branches. So it would be pretty cool to be able to see a headquarters or something like that. See what sort of technology they're employing. Like, of course, in Alien Covenant, we see where Walter is turned on. So, you know, to a degree, we've seen Weyland's home on Earth as well. But yeah, we haven't really seen anything outside of that post-resurrection. So yeah, that would be cool. I do appreciate the post-apocalyptic stuff, but I would like to see this alternate theatrical cut utopia that Earth has become in the absence of humans. I think that would be something unique to explore, and I think it would make a formidable ground to verse the xenomorph on. Definitely, because we've only ever had, you know, rundown places. I would like to see the xenomorph, I don't know, fight humans in a rainforest or something. What would a xenomorph and a puma, for example, give us? What sort of crossover would that be?
Yeah, I like that kind of stuff. The alternate xenomorphs, the variants of them, and things like that. So it's the series hasn't touched upon much in that sense. So there's just so much you can do with it that, you know, I feel that we're being restricted from all the possibilities that could be taken advantage of, because it's all moving so slow. There's 5 years between Prometheus and Covenant. That's an eternity. They need to take the Star Wars model. They need a different story, different movie, maybe, you know, intertwining stories, characters that come and go from movie to movie, that cross over and things like that. Now's the time to do it. The Marvel model, obviously, too. Alien, imagine having a film property, Alien. Just the title says it all. So they really need to take advantage of that more than they're doing, because I feel like after Prometheus and certain fan reactions to that, there was almost this overcompensating reaction from the part of the studio where they're basically like, listen, we need to call this Alien, for one thing. We need to put the alien, the big chap, the big nasty guy, he needs to be on the cover of every poster. He needs to be on every commercial, just so people know. But meanwhile, the protomorph, he's in the movie for 12 minutes, I think, less than that maybe. So they need to, I don't know, develop the brand better in a way.
Yeah, I don't know what it's like over there in Canada, but in Australia, there are no Alien novelizations or books in regular bookstores. I have to go to a nerdy bookstore to find anything, or order it online, and that goes for toys as well. I've walked into a Toys R Us in Melbourne, and there's no Alien stuff whatsoever, whereas it was really easy to get that sort of stuff, the Kenner figurines and that sort of thing, back in the 90s. So, you know, what's going on? It seems like, you know, they have this great IP, which I feel that is, you know, capable of generating a lot of money, but they're not putting the stock out there. They're not, you know, trying to sell the brand. It just seems odd to me. And even the designers that come up with the official Alien branded clothing, it really sucks. They need new designers. They need new designs. It's just, yeah, I feel it's lacking in that sort of department, which is kind of sad. It makes it harder for me as a fan to be able to try to support it.
Yeah, the fans are out there. We're here. We're right now. We're talking. Come on, give us what we want. Well, I guess we all want different things, so I don't know. Maybe that's their hang-up, but yeah, it's true. I mean, you don't see it on the level that it should be, where everyone knows what Star Wars is, everyone knows what Star Trek is, everyone knows who Batman, Superman, all those people are, but you say, hey, Alien, Ripley, right? You know that? Maybe 50-50 people will actually kind of give you the nod of recognition in that. So I think there needs to be more exposure and more availability.
Yeah, and what do you think about this secret upcoming Alien game that's going to be coming out, released by Cold Iron Studios? Have you heard much about it?
I've heard very little about it, other than literally what you've just said. I'm following it as much as I can, but right now we can definitely 100% rule out that it's an Alien Isolation sequel, which is too bad.
That's a great game.
Yeah, it was like, the same with, to backtrack a little bit, we need more games, we need more, the comics are out with Defiance and Dead Orbit, and we have a new novel coming out, Cold Forge, which I'm very excited to give a read. I think that's out next month, actually. And anyway, we need more of what we want. Alien Isolation was a very acclaimed game, and whatever. But anyway, in regards to the super secret project, I don't know. I don't know too much other than it's not Alien Isolation sequel. But if it's another shoot 'em up like Aliens Colonial Marines, I'll be very disappointed, especially if they can't get the AI right, which obviously they didn't with that one.
Yeah, that was a bit of a disappointment. Just hold on a sec. Kids keep coming into the room. Alright. Sorry, I won't take up too much more of your time.
Oh, sure, no problem.
I'm just going to Google Cold Iron Studios. I am following the game devs on Instagram, but they're very quiet. They don't let anything slip. Not like the writers of the Alien movies, which I was able to stalk from quite early on.
Really?
Yeah. Let me see.
See, I wanted to be surprised when Covenant came out. I was talking to someone who saw, one of the advanced screenings, and they're like, let me tell you what happened in the movie. I'm like, no, don't. And then I hung up. I like to know as little information as possible.
I know that The Hollywood Reporter did have a preview for an Alien game, and it did seem like a shooter, unfortunately. And I don't know whether this was a location-based game, because there is an Alien interactive VR game that's being built in Malaysia, which is going to take place in a physical room, so you'd have to go there to be able to play it. So I don't know whether this is going to be a version of that, but it does seem like it's another sort of first-person shooter, Colonial Marines sort of setting. What would you like out of an Alien game for one to come out? Like, you said you didn't want something like Colonial Marines. What would you prefer?
Well, if this is going to sound incredibly stupid, but bear with me. I would love to see an Alien Lego game, because I'm a terrible video game player. I really am. But those Lego games, they're exactly my skill level. But I like that you can kind of toss between characters, and each character has their different ability and things like that. You could choose from dozens and dozens of characters. So, if you need to open a door, you choose one character. If you need to, unlock something, you choose a different character. Everyone has their own abilities. So I could definitely see that applying to like an Alien Lego game. Like, if you need to open the door, Hudson runs a bypass or something like that. I maybe that sounds stupid, but an Alien Lego adventure
like a lot
game.
Of fun, and that would Lego games always have a way of making light and fun out of really serious sort of adult-themed movies. I play the Pirates of the Caribbean one a lot, and it is fun.
Yeah.
And
I've
something
played
that
them
kids
all.
could get into as well. So,
Yeah, it's good for the kids. Get them hooked on Alien while they're young. It worked for me.
Yeah, absolutely. It worked for me too. For me, what I would love to see is, I don't know, well, since you said you're not much of a gamer, but I used to play Metroid on GameCube years ago, and, you know, a lot of aspects of Metroid is taking homage to the female protagonist in Alien movies, and the fact that the final boss is called Ridley, who's a pterodactyl. So it's, I think it's really cool having the transformative sort of powers as well, and you start off with a full power suit with all the mods, etc., and then you get all stripped back, and then you have to kind of find modifications and build up again to be able to escape the planet or the ship or wherever you are. So I think if they release an Alien game in the same scope of Metroid, it would be really cool. I'd be all over that.
I could see that, because I'm not too familiar with Metroid. Like, Super Metroid is where I stopped playing. That's like the latest Metroid game I know, but that was a great game. But anything just different and that's what was so good about Alien Isolation. It was different. It was a survival game. I was horrible at it. It took me, I don't even want to admit this, but it took me a year to pass the game, which is pathetic. But it was just such this immersive experience. Yes, a year. But it was so different than, you know, the Marines point and shoot kind of stuff, which I love, but we've seen it before, so anything different would be good.
I would like to see one maybe in the style of Metal Gear Solid, kind of stealth, so no weapons and having to avoid the alien, or even being the alien and having to be stealth. That would be cool.
Well, actually, one Alien game, which might be my favorite Alien game, is Aliens vs. Pinball, which is a fantastic, but maybe not everyone's cup of tea, but it's a really cool Alien licensed game, and it's pinball, so it's different.
It's good to play on the go. I've played that a couple of times. It's good waiting room sort of stuff.
Yeah, I think so. There was a period when I got a little obsessed with trying to get the highest score possible. I can't remember where I got it, somewhere around 50 million, but I'm trying to get higher there. So I'll keep everyone updated.
Yeah,
just
sure.
check my Instagram at Alien Theory YT. I don't know my Instagram, whatever it is. You can find.
I will include all of the links. I follow you on everything, and I'm following you on Patreon now too. I can only spare a little bit of my money because I'm not working currently, but, you know, I want to support you guys, you and Mr. H.
I appreciate that. I really do. Every little bit helps.
All right. Thank you so much for coming onto the show and talking. I would really love to have you on after the Predator movie drops. Maybe you, me, Mr. H, and a couple of other people can have a roundtable.
That would be a good roundtable.
Yeah, I think it would be nice to break things down, enjoy it, and also in future, if any Alien movies come out, I would like to have a chin wag about what we think about the movie and the state of the fandom. Who knows, things might change.
Well, yeah, seriously, anytime. You just let me know. I'd be more than happy to come on. This has been a very fun experience. I don't get to do podcasts too much. Usually it's just me talking to myself and then slapping on some scary music to it for my YouTube videos. So this is interacting with a human has been fun. Yeah, I just want to say, again, I really appreciate what you've been doing with this series, with the fan creatives and the blog. And so far, the podcast has been really enjoyable. I listened to the previous one with Mr. H, and I thought it was great.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you for your feedback.
Anytime.
So, yeah, thank you everyone for joining me on another Fan Creatives podcast. This was Derek, Alien Theory. Really great meeting you.
Likewise.
You'll be able to read his written interview on the Yutani blog soon. All right, baby's crying. Gotta go.
The little xenomorph awaits.
Yeah, my little chest burster.
This is Mother and Alien Theory signing off.
Yes.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Oh, sorry. Could you hold on?
Oh, sure.
Sorry. Just hold on a sec. kids just came back from the park and they'll be noisy, so
I
will...
Bring them in, let's talk about aliens. Which xenomorph is your favorite?
Anastasia, my daughter, she's 4. She really likes Big Chap.
Big Chap. Good choice.
Yeah, she calls her alien Darkness.
Darkness.
Here we go. So what can you tell us about your alien figure, Darkness? Yeah,
I love the aliens.
Really?
Would you like a pet facehugger?
Do you want a pet facehugger, Anna? Yes?
This is Colony Ship Covenant, reporting. All crew members apart from Daniels in Tennessee tragically perished in a solar flare incident. All colonists in hypersleep remain intact and undisturbed, on course for Orgai 6. Hopefully this transmission will reach the network and be relayed in 6 years.
You can now support Yutani Podcast on Patreon and subscribe to yutani.blog to stay up to date.